Hello and welcome to another installment of the APB recap. Not many significant news happening this week, but there are things that are worthy of discussion in my opinion, even if they're super petty. But hey, the stream is pretty fun and we're gonna be talking about some Hooplas. If you want the full, raw, unedited, and free of YouTube monetization restrictions stream, then you can check out my stream channel, link down below, go subscribe. Alright guys, bear with me here. You know how if you're firsting for someone or something on the internet, you got a bunch of people telling you to get to horny jail? Yeah, well, here in the wonderful land of Indonesia, we have a real-life horny jail. No, really, we have a real-life horny jail. There are lots of things that the Indonesian police can do, but we have a really stupid law for 18+ content that will get people arrested if you express how horny you are at stuff, and especially if you buy horny stuff. So there's this comedian who got arrested for purchasing OnlyFans content. That's right, a comedian in Indonesia got arrested for purchasing OnlyFans content. What a wonderful world that I live in. It all started back at the end of March where the OnlyFans content creator, the OnlyFans model, got arrested. Then the feds tried to find and arrest pretty much everyone who bought the content and are still doing it even to this day. No, really, the feds are trying to arrest everyone who bought her content. This is where our tax money went into. Arresting Sims. And that's how the comedian got arrested. The feds identified him. The interesting thing is, he knew the OnlyFans model from a podcast. I looked it up. It's Deddy Cobusier's podcast. That's the equivalent of being in a Joe Rogan podcast in Indonesia. And ever since the podcast, he tried to find her phone number and got curious and bought 76 immoral videos, thank you Google Translate, and a number of nude photos from a Google Drive link, and he used it for stand-up comedy material. Yeah, right.
My BS detector's going ding!
But the rabbit hole gets even deeper. She has a Twitter account, and I went on to check it out because apparently she posted her 18+ content there first. You had to dig a little deeper, but they're there, I can tell you that for a fact. Putting all that aside though, when I visited it the first time, the very first tweet that I stumbled upon is her apologizing to someone for being a hypocrite, bully, and troublemaker. Well, she is causing a lot of trouble, that's for sure. And she's also causing a huge trouble to her adult video co-star, who was apparently her boyfriend because she never disclosed the fact that the videos will appear at her OnlyFans. That's right, she posted the 18+ videos without his consent. This, ladies and gentlemen, is why you can't just hire some random hookers in Indonesia. There's a good chance that your dongle would dangle in public. For real though, I'm legitimately shocked that there are adult content creators who are Indonesian that are still willing to make adult content despite the fact that adult content production and distribution are pretty much outlawed in the country. But with that said, the law was notoriously loose and so many people have criticized how loose and abusive the law is. It's to the point where there are millions of people who can totally get away with it, and there are some who can't. Most of them who can't get away with it just so happen to be really big public figures. Still, doesn't stop people from doing it. Heck, there are Indonesian films that manage to blur the lines between legally distributable R-rated film and straight up 18+ content. In other words, softcore. Not lying, when I was browsing through the hub, I literally found one of the content creators who got arrested at one point in time and still have the account in there. They got verified at the hub. Unfortunately, they did this really dumb thing in the beginning of the video where they showed which hotel that they checked in. That's how the police got them, I assume. Point is, this is the country that I lived in. It's absolutely wild in terms of what content we can and cannot distribute, and by the metric of me talking about this topic, I'm really tipping my toes here. You know what you can do to help though? Subscribe to this channel, donations through whatever means you like, stream channel, go subscribe, links down below. Speaking of sex, let's talk about family content. So you know the Zam meme? You know where there's this guy who made the thumbnail face where he just gets super excited over a minor? This has been memed to death at this point, and this just highlights the biggest problem of YouTube family content. Well, family content. I just want to highlight one of them because I laughed for like a minute straight when I found this out. His face. This face. I don't know why the first thing that came to my mind was when Dangpod said, "This is the face of fully cooked." Ooh, sex and drugs. We're getting real spicy on this recap. So there's a viral picture of a Tory MP sitting down next to what he claimed to be Dandruffs. Right.
How high are you?
It doesn't look like dandruffs to me. That looks like highly illegal substances. I mean, can't you make better excuses than dandruffs? Maybe it's like a baking powder or flour or something. Maybe that could work, but who the hell collects dandruffs? You know you screwed up when snorting illegal substances is a more plausible explanation than your other excuse. And you know that this person isn't a good politician when his lying skills are about as good as a child that got caught with the cookie jar. I don't really care about the whole scandal. I just find it funny that a politician lied about consuming drugs by saying that he collects dandruffs.
And you know what the weird part is? I'm not even high. Not a bit. Totally sober.
This one is just really stupid. So there's this article talking about how a wife asked his husband for an open relationship and now he's being completely unreasonable. I mean, the writing's on the wall there. Open relationships don't always end very well, especially for couples that only just experimented on that sort of stuff. Doesn't stop people from trying though, so alright then. The wife was raised in a very religious home where sex and dating were completely taboo. She wanted to save herself for marriage. After a decade of marriage and hating sex, she asked her husband if she could explore other experiences and experiment with other people if the chance arose. The husband enthusiastically agreed.
If you leave children behind, pay your child support on time.
There's this tweet right here talking about children education. That is something I'm familiar with. That's actually my current job at the moment. The OP's daughter is writing a story about a farm for school, but she isn't allowed to write just any story. The story needs to have a conflict if she wants to have a good score. I mean, that's like every story. Every story needs to have a problem for the characters to overcome. It doesn't have to stretch into conflicts, but having that problem is what engages us as the audiences because we want to see those characters overcome those problems, no matter how small they are. And yet the OP has issues with it. Are we teaching our kids to make stories, or are we teaching our kids to make conflict? Ooh. Deep. Okay, first off,
I fail to recognize the correlation.
Are you implying that whatever conflicts that the kids are making in fiction will somehow spill into the real world? Are you saying that because kids make conflicts in fiction, that means that they're also going to cause conflicts in the real world? I mean, they will cause conflict in the real world. That's just what kids do. The next tweet said, hilarious that the all stories have conflict people feel the need to cause conflict here. You're the one who made that take. Learn how to take the hit, scrub. Trust me when I say that children know how to tell interesting and uninteresting stories with no conflict. I think we're in a disagreement in what defines as conflict. I think a more accurate term to use would be a problem. All stories have problems to overcome. Not all stories have relationship ending conflicts, but they do have smaller scale conflicts that even we in the real world encounter all the time. I think we need to be in agreement in what defines as conflict. But then a reply from someone else is even dumber. This is the reason my child fell in love with Ghibli films. Ghibli films? Which Ghibli films? I hope it's not Grave of the Fireflies because that movie is not for the faint of heart. Princess Mononoke? I mean, there's war in it. Is that what you're teaching? Nausicaa? That also has war and protect the environment stuff, but it mostly has underskirts. Kiki's Delivery Service, that has some conflicts. There are goods that need to be delivered. Even Ghibli's more wholesome movies like My Neighbors the Yamadas have conflicts. This person that brought up Mr. Rogers, not a good example because even within his show, there are still conflicts. Him trying to spin the hula hoop, for example, that's a conflict. He has a conflict with a hula hoop. Not a big one, granted, but it's still something that he tried to overcome. And that's just a small example within the grand scheme of his shows. You can see the Mr. Rogers shows for free on YouTube. No, really, you can. Conflict is a market-based expectation that prioritizes a rush with a resolution over experience or aesthetic. In other words, people are interested in stories that have intriguing conflicts rather than visuals or experience. What do you define as experience in this context anyway? If a story doesn't have enough interesting or engaging conflict for the characters to overcome, wouldn't that make it a horrible experience. Seriously, I think people really need to improve their media literacy. It's one of those things that are seriously falling over in the current year. Everyone has talked about this, and I do agree that this really needs to be discussed. IGN is apparently offering new freelancers to assist with the daily flow of stories in games, entertainment, tech, and science. They're willing to pay $20 per story. That's right, $20. And you wonder why a lot of articles from game journals are absolute garbage. $20 is for basic news segregation, but you can get $50 if you do slightly more involved stories, and $300 for in-depth reporting with lots of sources. And you wonder why a lot of articles from game journals are absolute garbage. Apparently, this is the industry standard because it's from IGN, guys. This is a big multimedia corporation with lots of backings from other corporations because otherwise they won't be able to get their fundings. And yet they're offering rates worse than what freelance writers got paid here. No, really. My sister does freelance writing here. She got paid more for articles, and she's working on an indie startup company in Indonesia, not some big international multimedia corporation. Oh, IGN, why do big corporations always treat their employees like garbage? Is that the reason why it always leads to bad products all the time? All that hard work for this massive corporation and you got chump change. Good job. Okay, guys. I think we have a huge issue within our society, like a really significant issue. I talk about piracy a lot of times. I'm very pro-piracy in a lot of regards. Not always, but most of the times I am. Now, I admit that piracy is not the most accessible method for a lot of people because most people aren't the most tech-savvy. And that's why I encourage you to be more tech savvy. I encourage you to learn more about computers. I encourage you to improve your technological literacy. We're living in a digital age where being more technologically literate is an incredibly valuable and important skill. Some people would even pay you for it. Straight up, if you know a thing or two about how to sail the seas, you have saved more dollars than you could have spent on literally anything else in life. Unfortunately, some people are apparently not very good at it. Anime pirates when they have to buy a new computer for the 5th time because an anime pirating site gave them a virus that bricked their computer. You might be surprised in how incredibly illiterate some people are with computers. It's to the point where people don't even read the included instructions that came with the thing that they've downloaded. And look, there's nothing wrong with being computer illiterate. That's ground zero for most people. You either make yourself more literate or have someone else to do it for you. And I've said many times that I'm willing to help. Send me an email or Twitter DM, links down below. That's where I'm most active. I just realized that as time goes on, computer literacy is so bad for people that browsing in and of itself is a skill. Like legit, there are people who don't know how to search for the solutions or search for the answers on Google. It's to the point where in my class, I actually highly encourage the students to look for the answers because searching for stuff online and browsing for the answers that you want is something that a lot of people are surprisingly terrible at. And of course, there are people who don't know how to use ad blockers, don't know how to use VPNs, or are not willing to spend money on VPNs, don't know how to clean their computers and protect them all from all sorts of viruses. All of these things are things that you can Google and learn for yourself, but people chose to be stupid because people are stupid. In this increasingly more digital age, I don't think that the big bad corporations with woke ideologies are gonna lead us into peril. I think being willfully ignorant about how to utilize technology to combat against the big bad corpos with the woke ideologies is going to lead us into peril. I propose that we all need to be smarter in dealing with computers and technology. At the very least, learn how to sail the seas, which is pretty much the best way of protesting against these big crony corpos that care more about promoting ideologies than entertainment. And finally, Square Enix, they're at it again because of course they are. Chrono Cross is not as loved as the previous JRPG masterpiece Chrono Trigger, but it's still a beloved RPG to lots of people. The remaster of the game just came out, and like a lot of Square Enix remasters of really old games, it's not the most perfect remaster. In fact, the remaster is pretty poor actually. The reviews of the port has been a mixed bag. Apparently, the game runs much worse than the original version, which is absolutely unbelievable and unacceptable. We did talk about how Square Enix lost a lot of the source codes for the older games that they had, but their remaster attempt is still not the best. And of course, the icing on the cake, the censorship. It's pretty much to be expected with Square Enix at this point, alongside bad translations. Though, a small update on that, if you switch to the classic models, the censorship is gone, but it's not really that much of a remaster, isn't it? But hey, just like 7 Remake, there'll be some spicy mods for it and people getting outraged by it. But then there's an issue that a couple of my viewers actually reported to me that happened very recently, which is that their digital PlayStation classics are expiring and unplayable, a lot of which are from Square Enix. So if you think that Square Enix's current port for Chrono Cross is not the best, you try to play it legitimately in the older platforms, apparently you can't, or at least some users reported that they can't. Could be a bug, could be deliberate, either way, not a good look. At this point, if you have a PS3 or a Vita and you're playing old games, you really should consider jailbreaking your consoles. It's the best source of action for those platforms. There are so many tutorials on how to do them online at this point. You absolutely should consider doing it, especially if you like preserving the games that you have, and especially when Sony just straight up don't care about these consoles anymore. I legit think that having the ripped or pirated digital copies of something is better than having a physical copy. Having the ROMs of the game safe in your hard drive is infinitely more secure than having the physical copies. Physical copies will deteriorate. I mean, yeah, drives deteriorate too, but at least copying them to other drives is much easier than copying an entire cartridge or a disc of a game. So yeah, grab the ROMs as much as you can, guys, and put a stick up of Sony's butt for trying to rip people off. That's all for the video today. If you like it, you can go ahead and click the like button and subscribe for more. If you wish, you can support this channel through the links down below, stream channel link down below, go subscribe, and thanks for watching.